growing topsoil. Okay, let's see if I can get that right. Okay, this is clay. This is what everybody hates when it comes to growing food. Okay? So clay, the reason nobody likes clay is because it gets really, really hard, and then no worms or anything like that can get through it. Okay, let's see.
Well, we could dig through with a shovel.
Yeah.
And when the rain comes.
If you got a really good shovel, you can dig through it. That's right. You can dig through anything.
How do we use shovel in this?
Okay, we're going to put out this sand. This one right here is sandy soil. Sandy soil is good, but if it's just by itself and it doesn't have any organic matter, then it's not all that great.
Yeah, like from the beach.
Yeah, so sand from the beach is very, very sandy. It's got no organic matter at all. This is earthworm castings. This is like black gold. That is wonderful for growing plants in.
What about this?
That one is gin trash, and we'll talk about that one in a little bit. Okay, is this everybody? So, today, we're going to talk about growing plants and growing, see if I can pull that away. Can y'all hear me good? Everybody hear me good? Okay. So we're going to just kind of touch on what you can do when you're growing stuff at your own house. But I kind of want to go over just a little bit first what it is that you want to do when you are growing things, okay? Let's see here. Get into my notes where I'm at. So I'll go ahead and tell you who I am. So I'm John Scarborough with Scarborough Farms. Me and my wife, we are here at the farmers market pretty much every week. It's mostly my wife, it's not me. I'm at home taking care of the farm. But we grow all sorts of different foods, all sorts of different products, and we do that with regenerative agriculture. So that's a different type of agriculture than you're used to seeing. So what that is it's a process of getting carbon into the soil and focusing on life in the soil. So the biology of the soil, getting that just exactly right so that we can make our plants and everything else healthier, okay? So, get into my notes here. So a lot of people don't know what the best thing is for your soil. So I'm gonna ask some of the people here, what do y'all think the most important thing is for plants? Does anybody know what the most important thing is for plants? Soil? A lot of people actually say that's NPK, that's nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. That's what we thought for a long time. We're starting to learn that the most important thing is carbon. Carbon is the most important thing in our soil. Carbon is we see way too much carbon in the atmosphere. Everybody knows that about carbon. But we don't know everything about carbon. So carbon is, so if you look at this right here, if you look at this natural topsoil right here, this is like a sandy mix. This is a mix of like this sand over here, but it's mixed in with lots of carbon. So then how does the carbon get into the soil? How do we go from this sandy soil or from clay, like this right here, how do we go from that to this good topsoil? Okay? The way this happens is the microbes in your soil, the life that's in your soil. So first you have things like cattle, animals, things like that. They'll actually eat grass, carbonous material that has carbon in it. It could be a leaf from a tree, it could be grass, it could be whatever. Okay? That carbon, after they eat it, they'll trample some of it. What they trample, between their manure and what they've trampled, the earthworms will go in there and eat that. This over here, this is earthworm castings. That's what the castings look like. Now that's a dried up portion of it, so it's not like really moist when you would find it in your soil, okay? But when they eat that, they break that carbon down, and they actually make it into a better, more utilized, more usable molecule, okay? It's actually in a place that can be used. So your microbes, the life that's in your soil, we're calling it microbes because microbes consist of billions and billions of different things. There's more life in the end of my finger, a piece of soil that size right there. So this right here, there's actually more life in that than there are humans on the planet. Yeah. Now, that's rich soil. That's not all soil. That's rich soil. Did you know that? There's more life inside of that right there than there is humans on the planet. Yep. So it's that life that actually gets that carbon into the soil. That's what breaks that carbon down and helps it to become useful. Because when it's in the atmosphere, it's not doing any of us any good. It's not, everybody knows that. It's not doing any of us any good. But in the carbonic acid, that's the acids that are produced from the carbon. That breaks down minerals. So we get rocks and things like that. A lot of people have heard that our soils are depleted and we don't have any minerals in our soil. That's true, but it's not true. So the part that's true is we don't have available minerals. So you need carbonic acid and you need microbes in your soil to actually make those things available. Those things can't be available. So what that means when we say we have depleted soil, that actually means that we have soils that are depleted of available nutrients, okay? So by enriching our soil, making it go from this right here, or this right here, this sandy right here, this sand that water and nutrients just washes right through that. By enriching it with this, you can see there I can actually squeeze that together, okay? I take this, I squeeze it together, and it holds, but it breaks apart, okay? So it's a little bit different. Now this right here, this squeezes together, and it stays together too much. Earthworms, microbes, things like that can't get through it, okay? So the whole point in this is that we're trying to create life. We're trying to create a real balance here, okay? So how do we get this in there, okay? We get this through the roots that are in our soil. So like when this right here grows, this hat, can you still, you can't hear me. Let's see, okay, right there. I think we're good. She's moving around a little bit. So this right here is made of mostly carbon, and then the root is made of mostly carbon, okay? As this plant dies, once this plant dies and then it rots down into there, then that's where the carbon actually starts to get released. That's where the earthworms come in and all like that. But can anybody tell me why earthworms are good other than just carbon?
As they eat the soil, or as the soil goes through them.
So they eat things like organic matter and things like that and break it down. But did you know that earthworm castings, this right here, did you know that this has a perfect pH? So you need a good pH for things to grow. Okay, you need about a 6.2 to 7 is about perfect for plants to grow. Some plants are different, but they're all about the same. Every time an earthworm has a casting, every time it comes out at a perfect neutral 7. Now that's just one good thing about an earthworm. I could spend all day talking about how good earthworms are. So, but one of the best things and the easiest things to tell you about earthworms is the humus that's in their earthworm casting. So humus is like this stickiness. That actually binds our soil together, and it helps it to where when it rains, it doesn't wash all of our nutrients away. It also helps to give the microbes a place to live, and it keeps them from being washed out, because a lot of that can just be washed out. So a lot of people don't realize we're actually losing, across America, we're losing more topsoil than we're gaining. It's very hard to grow topsoil, to build it. Now, in regenerative agriculture, what me and my wife does, we actually do quite a bit of that.
You're not going to fight my daddy on Easter. Okay. You're not going to do this fight with my daddy on Easter. Oh, I don't know.
Apparently, it wanted to hear that more than me. I don't blame it at all. So in regenerative agriculture, we try to build soil from nothing. So we build it from like clay soil. Most of our soils that we raise cattle on is like this right here. Now, if we're fortunate, we have some of this. Because this right here it's draining and it doesn't give us a whole lot. But when you add organic matter, just like this right here, here, I can just turn it off. I think everybody can hear it. That's fine. So when you add organic matter to this right here, then now you get that humus that's inside. And that humus will actually hold together and hold all of those microbes in there, give them a place to live, and allow them to start breaking things down. So why is that good? Why do we care that the humus is there? Why do we care that the life is there? What is that actually doing for us? All soil, including topsoil, derives from rock. So it starts out as like boulders
and it slowly breaks down into smaller and smaller matter. But you can't just go and take a rock and eat it. And even if you could grind it up and put it in a smoothie, you can't eat that. Our bodies won't absorb hardly any of it. When microbes go down and they get all of these different minerals, they can actually mine these minerals and they can actually make them bioavailable for us. But it's also the carbonic acid. So the carbon that we were just talking about, that the earthworms help us with, okay? That carbon that's in there, it creates carbonic acid. So a lot of people don't know this because they don't have fireplaces and things like that anymore. But back in the day, it was pretty well known that you had to clean your fireplace pretty often. And the reason is that carbon buildup would actually start to produce carbonic acid and break the stone down in there. And they would actually get to where they don't have the stone, and I mean, it would end up caving in on them if they didn't clean it out. So they had to clean it out fairly often. But that carbon is what's actually allowing us to break stone down inside of our soil. So when you see like this red clay and you got this rock right here, that carbon that's in there starts to break that down and actually make those minerals available. So it's not that we don't have minerals in our soil. It's not that we're depleted of minerals, we're depleted of life. We don't have life in our soil. We've drained all of it off and gotten rid of all of that. So how does that really help everybody here? Okay, you're not going to do like we do and raise cattle and slowly build soil up and pull carbon down and make things better and better over time, okay? But what you can do with raised beds and things like that is you can increase this whole system. You can speed this up because we're building soil on all of our property. We're running about 160 acres and we're slowly building soil and making it better and better and better and better. But you don't want to do that in your vegetable garden. That's going to take you forever, okay? So you can speed that process up by planning out what you're actually putting in there. By putting a really good mix, and I'll show you a good mix here in just a minute, what you can put in there. But you can plan that out, and you can get away from a lot of your clays, get off of that, and you can create a perfect habitat for these worms and for the life. But if you can remember that it's the life that's in your soil that's allowing you to get the microbes. It's the life in your soil that's allowing you to get the minerals that's in your soil, okay? To actually tap into those minerals. Because when you grow this right here, a lot of people don't realize this either, but plants 100 years ago had a lot more nutrients. So there are some plants that you have to eat today, you have to eat 10 times as much of the same plant to get what we used to get in one plant. Now that number is not accurate with all things, but it's throughout, they're depleted. So when you eat an apple, it's just not the same apple that you used to eat 100 years ago. You know, you're not getting the same mineral profile that's in there, okay? So by building up that life and by trying to increase, focusing on the life in your soil rather than focusing on NPK, which is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, instead of focusing on those things, you can instead focus on the life in your soil, and those things will actually give you nitrogen. Did you know that me and my wife, we've been running our farm since 2016, and we have never once put fertilizer on our property. We've got 160 acres. We raise beef. We're selling lamb, pork, everything that's there. We've never once put nitrogen out. Now, I got farmers around me that's putting nitrogen out twice a year. And last year and through the pandemic, you know how bad that hurt?
Imagine.
And I didn't like it. I was sad for them, but I was so happy that I wasn't putting anything out. I didn't have to put anything. Now, I still have to buy hay, but I didn't have to put out any fertilizer at all. Now, why is that?
I'm waiting.
Because everything in the soil has given me exactly what my plants need, which gives the cattle what they need, and then that gives us what we need, okay? So it's all right there. That's what people don't realize that. So you don't have to fertilize this. Now, putting in manures and things like that can make it better. It can make it a lot better, okay? So there's a couple different things that you can do when you're building a garden, okay, to kind of speed up that process, to make this, if you just plant into this bare soil, it's okay, but it's not great, okay? One thing that me and my wife do, we do a process called deep mulch, okay? So you put mulch out, sometimes you put compost, whatever you want, on top of bare soil. Now we've done this on clay, we've done it on sand, and this works really well. But it takes about 5 years or so to really start to get that microbiology built up in that soil to start breaking that down. So we're growing plants right off the bat, but we're not really starting to absorb all those minerals, okay? That's the beautiful thing about raised beds like we've got here, is that allows people that are in town or whatever, and they're not necessarily trying to make their whole property great, they're just trying to get a good healthy plant. That speeds your process up exponentially, okay? Now it's expensive, it does cost money and things like that, there's some downfalls, and you're not necessarily going to feed the whole world with it. That's why we got people like us that are trying to run these cattle and slowly build up better soil and make it to where 160 acres is great. But this is something you can actually do in your backyard, and you can actually get more minerals out of your food, okay? So a really good mix, I'll pull out my phone just so I can check my notes here. One of my favorite mixes is going to be about a 50% topsoil. So like we said earlier, all soils derive from rock. Topsoil, a good topsoil, is about 85% organic matter. So that means 15% of that was stuff like this, sand, things like that. The rest of that's going to be organic matter. Leaves, mulch, old chunks of wood. Grass is some of the absolute best. It breaks down the quickest. People don't realize that grass you can actually regenerate carbon faster with grass than anything else. So grass can actually be a really good thing to put in your beds. Just be cautious about it because it can also attract snakes and things like that. So it's not necessarily ideal, but for a pasture it's great. Okay, so if I was going to build one of these, and I'm going to use 50% topsoil, because you do actually want to use soil, okay? Then I'm going to use about 30% compost. Now we make our own compost, me and my wife, on our farm. We got such a big compost pile, we got to use a tractor to get it all up. You know, I mean, it's a massively huge. We did a YouTube video the other day with her standing on top of it. Big old huge compost pile. But anyway, so it's going to be about 30%. Well, that makes up between your 50% topsoil and your 30% compost, that's about 80%. So what do you do with the other 20%? You can kind of play with it, but these are a couple different examples of things that I would put in there. So one would be shredded leaves or brown grass. I wouldn't put green grass in there. Green grass will turn your bed into more like compost. You don't want to do that. A compost pile needs to be away from what you're growing. If that compost gets hot enough, you can actually kill seeds. That's good, but it's not good in your garden, okay? So don't put hot compost in there, and don't put grass clippings and green things and things like that, okay? But brown grass, you can put that in there, and you can put leaf litter in there. Another good thing that I would put in there is I would put like a good mineral mix. You can go to like Lowe's or Home Depot or even Tractor Supply, wherever. Sometimes they'll have a good mineral mix in there, okay? And you can put that in your soil because for a little while, you haven't built up the microbes to really absorb all of the minerals that's in the soil. So for the first couple of years, you add that mineral mix and it just helps your plants. So it's more bioavailable is what it is. Another good one is actually buying earthworm castings, okay? That's what we did here. These are actually purchased for earthworm castings. A lot of people don't know about earthworm castings as well, on top of all the other good stuff that we already talked about. If I haven't sold you on an earthworm, I don't know what else I can do, okay? But earthworm castings has 5 times the nitrogen, 7 times the phosphorus, and 10 times the potassium of regular topsoil, okay? So by putting earthworms in your soil, you're not only increasing your carbon, your carbonic acid, all your nutrients, you're also giving yourself all of the macronutrients that you need, so all the fertilizer. That's where we get our fertilizers from. It's from our cows and from the earthworms that are exploding in our soils, okay? Because we got earthworms all out in our pastures now. And so we're getting all of this basically free energy, okay? So then I would consider doing that. Every year I'd probably top it with a little bit of earthworm castings or something like that. Another really good one would be like a mushroom compost. So a mushroom compost will actually increase the fungus in there. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole of talking about fungus because we'll be out here all day. But fungus is really good for your soil as well. They're kind of like workers. They help move stuff around. They do a lot of good stuff for your soil. So that's a really good one. Another one is aged bark. So you can put like old bark rather than big chunks of wood. You don't really want to mix a bunch of big chunks of wood. So like this right here, that's a chunk of wood, but it's not real big. But then most of this is bark right in here, okay? So putting aged bark in there, sometimes it can kind of increase the fungus and things like that, but mostly it breaks down, okay? It breaks down fairly quickly. A lot of people will put a lot of wood, big chunks of wood in there. You don't want to do that. And the reason you don't want to do that is because by putting all of those big chunks of wood in there, that wood is good, and eventually it will break down and turn into carbon. But at first, it requires so much nitrogen, okay, that it actually robs from your plants. So if you do a big bed like this one right here, like a 2-foot bed, your first foot needs to be where all your good is. Anything under there, then you can put wood chips. You could put wood chips, you could put there's a thing called hugelkultur. That's where you put like logs and stuff. You could put logs in there, so you could fill the bottom half. If you're taller than 1 foot, you can put wood chips, big logs, whatever, fill that up. If I was going to do this bed right here and I put logs and stuff in there, it'd save you a lot of money. I'd cut my logs straight up and down. They absorb more water if the water's going straight down in there rather than laying on its side. I'd put them straight up and down inside there, okay? And then I would filter like a sand, or you could even do clay. The good thing about clay, it gets a bad rap, but the good thing about it is it's very rich in nutrients if you can figure out how to get it out of there. So if you do this right, now you can actually get that nutrients out of that, okay? So by putting all of those logs down in there and then filtering all that, you're saving a lot of money that way. But the logs also will hold a lot of water. What you do on top of there is that mix that I just gave you with the topsoil and the compost and things like that. And then the worm castings. Another great one is actually coffee grounds. So me and my wife will actually go to coffee shops here in town and we will recycle coffee grounds. And we get a lot of, mostly it's going to be nitrogen and potassium in that one, but it's also something that worms love. So that's a good one. Mix some of it in there. Don't mix fresh coffee grounds. Fresh coffee grounds are acidic, okay, so don't do that. Use used coffee grounds. When you drink your coffee, you drink all your acid down. So use your used coffee grounds in there. It's great for your soil, it's great for everything. Another really good one is composted cow litter or cow manure or chicken manure. Make sure you compost it. The reason you compost it is because the minerals, the life in our soil is not strong enough yet, like it used to be, to actually absorb all of that. So we need to compost that. So if you're putting it in your bed, compost it, you'll take care of that. Now rabbit manure, you do not have to compost. Rabbit manure is actually better. So if you can get rabbit manure from anybody, I'd put rabbit manure in there. That's going to be one of the best things you can do. It's actually really good for earthworm production. They love it, and it's also higher in, I think it's higher in nitrogen, if I remember right. It's probably higher in a lot of stuff, but I'm not real versed on that one. So I'm not going to go into that too much. Okay, so the next one, don't use horse manure. Okay, horse manure, horses are unable to break down any of the toxins that would be put in through like sprays and stuff. So if they had any sprays or anything like that, it can come out in their manure. So if you put that into your bed, it can actually be really bad. So just stick to your cow manures and your chicken manures and stuff like that, okay? Now let's talk about top dressing. Once you've built your soil up and you've gotten it where you want it, you've got everything in there that really feeds your soil and can feed you for years and years to come. Now you want to put a little bit of a top dressing here. That's kind of what they did here. I would have done a little bit more later on, personally. The top dressing helps to cool the surface of your soil. So last summer we had a drought, one of the worst droughts we've seen. A lot of people, their gardens were drying up. They couldn't do anything about it, okay? Me and my wife, we actually had top dressed our fields, and we weren't even watering. We didn't even have to water because we top dressed it just right, and that holds the moisture in there while also feeding microbes. With top dressing, you actually can use wood chips, okay, because you're not buried down in the soil, okay? So it'll break down some, and you're getting it, but it's slow, so you're not worried about it robbing all from your plants, okay? Another good one would be just leaves, mulch, things like that. You can top dress with all of those things. Leaves are actually great because, like leaves from trees, obviously, because they have, not only are they rich in, well, to save time, they're rich in everything that your soil needs, okay? And they usually have more minerals than things like grass and things like that because they are mined off of a tree with deep, deep tap roots. So a lot of times they're actually really rich in nutrients. So let's see. I will tell you this. So I got this one bag right here and never opened it up. One of the best things that I've ever top dressed, this is the best thing, is gin trash. Now, I'm going to just go ahead and tell you, not everybody can get their hands on gin trash unless you're getting a lot of it. So I'm going to tell you all the great stuff about it, but you're not necessarily going to get it, okay? Gin trash is basically the leftovers from making cotton. So when they harvest cotton, they have gin trash, and that's all left over. This is something I figured out on my own. I started top dressing my plants. The best garlic I ever grew was probably a 25 by 25 bed of garlic. And I think it was like 800 plants or something like that. The best garlic was grown with gin trash. And I didn't even fertilize it, I didn't do anything. 2 years after I put that gin trash, that plot still didn't need any fertility. It didn't need anything. And I don't know if it was just the gin trash or something else I did. But the gin trash actually is a wonderful food for the plant itself, but it's also a wonderful food for earthworms. So if you take gin trash and you put it in a pile, okay, that's the fastest way to build up your own earthworm castings. So if you don't want to go to the store and go buy them, you take a big pile of gin trash, put it in your backyard somewhere, and you could, let water get to it. It needs to be moist. Those earthworms will come out of your soil and actually attack that. I think it was within 3 months, we had nothing but pure earthworm castings, the whole pile. So you could literally do both of those. You could build up your earthworm castings and your earthworms, inoculate your soil with your earthworms and their castings, and then top dress that with your gin trash. So if you can get your hands on that, that is the best stuff I've ever used in my life. So I think I've rambled on enough about that. If you want, I can show some of the kids we can plant some stuff here and there. If they're not around, that's not a big deal.
How'd you find out about the gin trash?
The gin trash was my own experiments. I figured that, so if y'all have any questions, that's fine too. So some people will feed cattle gin trash in the wintertime. So I got my hands on a little bit of free stuff. My father-in-law, he had a bunch of gin trash. He gave me what was left over. So I used it in my bed, because usually I'll use other stuff. I'll use hay, I don't mind using hay where I'm at, because I'm careful about it. There's nothing wrong with it, it's great. Just be careful about snakes, that's all I'm saying with the hay. But I'll use wood chips, hay, things like that. So then I decided, you know what, this gin trash is just laying here, I'm gonna give it a shot. I know it's high in nitrogen and things like that. So I put it on there, and then, the rest is history. It just exploded, it was the best stuff ever. So I'm not even trying to sell it to you. I wish I could sell it. After this, I wish I could just sell it to you, but I don't have any, unfortunately. Yeah. So, is there any other questions? That was a really good question.
Well, this may be a little off topic.
Okay,
we live
that's
out
fine.
in Diane, out in the country,
Okay.
and we have some pasture land that has been not fertilized for at least 2 decades.
Okay.
Last time I did it with chicken litter, it was great.
Okay, yep, that's good
It's
stuff.
hard to get it like it used to be.
Right.
What would you recommend, other than commercial fertilizers, to try to build the topsoil up, because it is poor as it can be?
The best way you can build topsoil, the best way I know of anywhere. Have you ever heard of mob grazing?
Moving around
Yeah.
from place to place.
But it's not just rotational grazing. There's a big difference.
Okay, that's one.
Mob grazing is intensive grazing. You actually graze your cattle, and that's what me and my wife do on our farm. You intentionally move them around and make sure that their litter is everywhere, not just in your creek. So a lot of people, they'll turn them loose on their farm, and all the litter goes down into the creek, and they don't trample anything. They'll pick out here and there, and that's why a lot of times you'll drive past a pasture this time of year, and you'll see green spots growing up. That's where their litter is. That's where all their manure is. But by mob grazing, you're spreading that around everywhere. But you're doing something way better than that. You're also pushing grass into the edge of the soil, which is what allows the soil to break that carbon down. Because otherwise, that carbon, if it's not pushed into the soil through mob grazing or something like that, then it can actually leach back up and go back into the
Well,
atmosphere.
we got out of the cow business 15 years
Okay,
ago.
so
And
then if you're not-
it's just that we have a few horses, but that's it.
You can do it with horses as well. You can do mob grazing with horses. Now, not everybody enjoys it.
We don't have enough horses.
Right,
We-
right.
Do you have any recommendations of something other than just going out and
Chicken
going
litter
over
would
old
be
meals and
Yeah, chicken litter would be great if I didn't have any way to mob graze, but I did have horses. I would unroll hay in the wintertime. Rather than giving them a hay ring, I would unroll hay everywhere. Okay? Because then you are inoculating your soil with actual carbon. Okay? Those horses will actually trample that
Sure.
in there, and then their litter will go into the soil and do the same thing. It's not as good as cows, but it is a good second, kind of a second best. You know, but that unrolling that hay is
is it
phenomenal.
still possible to get loads of chicken litter and
It is.
and spread it and people have the
Yes.
spreaders?
Yes, and there's nothing wrong with that. That is really
No, it was
good.
great.
Right. It's
It-
some of the best thing you can do is chicken litter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a few days of smell after a rain.
Right,
but
right.
It smelled like it was helping the pasture
Yeah,
out, and
right.
it turned it as beautiful as it's ever been. But
Right.
after a while, it got harder and harder to find. You know, people
It is
started
getting-
realizing how valuable it was.
Right. It is getting very, very hard to find, but it is really good if you can get your hands on it. That's why we do stuff like actually raise chickens on pasture. That helps to inoculate the soil,
Yeah, right.
you know, and things like that. Another good thing you could do is consider leasing it to somebody that would actually mob graze it, or somebody that would raise chickens on it. That would be a free way for you to actually help your
You're
horses
looking
out
for
with
some
that.
land to lease.
I look for land everywhere to lease, but that's not what I'm trying to do. How much land is it? I might be
Maybe
interested.
40
You never know.
acres, 40 acres of pasture.
Well, we'll have to talk after this. But so that is a really good way, is actually inoculating it with chicken manure and things like that. That can help. And the main thing is it helps with the organic stuff. The next thing you can do is actually planting it with clover. If you plant all of that with clover, the clover root
The only
will
problem we've
actually...
had with that, you have to disc up everything, get that clover in.
That's
don't you?
not true.
Is that right?
Well,
we can put.
You do have to the first year, but clover seed does not rot in the ground.
Yeah,
if you-
I thought it was you had to get it established, red clover or something
Right,
like that.
right.
Or,
So clover seed does
arrowleaf.
not, it does not rot in the ground like a lot of seeds do. So if you put it out, you just put it out with a spreader,
right.
the next year you'll see clover. And if you continue to let that clover reseed itself, you'll
Yeah.
never have to do it again.
Right.
Now I'm not
What
saying
kind of clover you recommend?
I like red clover for my cattle, but honestly, I'm a big diversity guy. I love diversity, so as much diversity as possible. So even though I really like red clover, I'm going to say put all the clover, all the different types of clover you can do. It is expensive,
Yep.
so what you can do is spread it thin with some other things, like maybe ryegrass or something like that, and then let it spread, come up and reseed itself.
Right.
So the only way you
Right.
can let it reseed itself is to keep your horses off of it
Sure,
until after it's
We don't
headed
have
out.
enough horses to do that. At this
Right.
point, so that'd be good. I didn't know.
So I do-
always understood you had to disc it in the first year,
It is better the first year.
but you can just top like it was ryegrass.
That's, well, I'll say it like this. I've got a YouTube channel. We've got all kinds of videos on there. We teach all of this stuff,
What's
everything on
in
here.
Scarborough?
It is John Scarborough Regenerative Rancher.
Where's y'all's place?
We are out of Duboc, Louisiana.
Out of Diana.
Yep. All right. So what we do, we've got several videos on this, and we've actually got clover blowing up all over our place right now, and I've never tilled any of it in. Well, that is not true. I actually did till a small spot in, and it is better to till it in. But I've done so many places where all I've done is spread it out, and then it comes up. Now, it came up the following year. It was not the first year, but now it's blowing up like crazy everywhere. And I never had to disc the soil. I never had to tear anything up, because when you disc soil, you tear up a lot of stuff with your microbes. You know, there's nothing wrong with it, nothing wrong with it. But you do slow stuff down a little bit by doing that.
You need to come lease my place and turn it into nice
Well, you
organic.
just check out that YouTube channel. Go look at that. You can see a lot of the
I'll
stuff
send
we've
you
done.
a text message on there.
Yep. Well, so my YouTube channel is actually right here. All you got to do is, that's a QR code. If you know how to use that, anybody
No, I
can
don't.
use that.
Here, you use it.
All right. If you've got a camera on your phone, all right. Here, we can do it after the video, because they're video. We don't want the people to get bored.
I'm sorry.
No, I'll help you with that. Just a minute. Unless everybody wants to learn how to use a QR code. Are there any other questions? Any other questions about gardening or soil health or minerals in your soil? You ladies with the camera, you guys look like you're dead. You don't want to hear anything else.
It's interesting. We're both in nutrition, so
Really?
Yeah,
So,
it's a
okay.
big
Well,
deal.
so then you either disagree with me or agree with me.
well, we're talking a lot about sustainability right now.
Okay.
So this is good info. I don't know a lot about it to have any questions, to be
Okay.
honest.
All right. Well, that's
So,
fair.
but it's cool. It's
Well,
really
I
cool.
guess if nobody else has any questions, and if any of the kids wants to help, we can do some of this, or we can just wrap it up. Y'all want to plant some stuff?
Number 4.
All right. So they bought me. Here, give me a hand. They bought me some of this topsoil. We're not going to use that. We're actually going to do it. I'm going to show you how to mix up some soil. Okay.
To make it real cool, you'll put red
To make it really, really good stuff. Yep.
on.
Yep. I'm going to show you what to do. So each one of y'all, there you go, and there you go. Okay. Here, you want some? I'm going to show you how to mix it up. Okay. Y'all come on in.
I need to put this thing
Okay.
down.
There you go. Here you go. We got more right here. Okay. There you go. Anybody else? All right. I'm going to move this table out a little bit so I can stand on this side of it. I can help y'all out. Perfect. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'm going to mix up one pot. Okay. This is my pot. And I want y'all to do exactly what I do. Okay. All right. So we want to use about 50% topsoil. This right here is store-bought topsoil. It's okay, but real topsoil that's grown on our farm, this right here is the best stuff you can get. Okay? We're going to use about 50% topsoil coming out the bottom there. So you can actually pack your bottom just a little bit. Y'all go ahead and pack that, or you can use anything to pack it in the bottom. Just a little bit. Pack it in. There you go. Now, is that enough? There you go. Put a little bit more in yours. Watch your eyes. Don't get it in your eyes, okay? Push it down. Okay. Push that bottom down. Don't do it too much. You want it to be able to drain, but just a little bit. There you go. I'm going to put it in. I'm going to let you mash it down, okay, buddy? Okay, there you go. Now mash that down just a little bit. Good job. That's perfect.
Good, Mary.
Okay, now we're going to add a little bit more topsoil to that. We're going to get to our 50%. Okay? Doesn't have to be exact. 50% is about halfway. Okay? Now the rest of that don't mash down. Just that first little bit.
Just on the bottom. You know.
Just on the bottom. Because you want your soil to be able to get oxygen in there. Your plants need oxygen just like we do. Okay? Here's this one. Is this yours?
Is that yours?
Is this one yours?
Yeah, that's yours.
This is the same stuff right here. We'll just use this. We're going to be conservative here. Okay? Is that everybody? Y'all got your topsoil in? Okay? Now since we don't have any compost, we're going to use the store-bought topsoil, which is pretty much compost. We're going to put this in. That's most of your pot. You're going to have that in there. Most of it. Not quite. You're going to go almost. Okay?
Mom, I want to do it.
You want to do it? Here.
You can do it?
Here you go.
This is there.
Okay, now you do it. Now just don't put your
Hold it
hands
flat,
on your
Mary.
face. You don't want to get all dirty when you go home. There you go. I'll help you get topped off. There you go. A little bit right there. It's about perfect. A little bit more in yours. A little bit more in that one right there. Okay. There you go.
What is this? What is this? It's a flower.
Okay. Here, I'll put just a little bit more there, buddy. Just like that.
The dewy mushroom.
Okay. All right, now do y'all remember what the next thing to put in there after everything I said? If you don't, that's fine.
Seed?
Okay, so now we are actually going to go ahead and put our seed in.
Is that right?
Yes. I never mentioned that, but you are right. All right. Oh, you need a little bit more of your compost here. Okay, right there.
I'm winning out of the
That's
5-year-olds.
perfect. Okay, now this is actually mixed flowers, so we're going to put a lot of these in there, but they're supposed to be about 1.5 inches.
I have some.
Okay, so we're just going to get just a little bit. We're going to actually open this up a little bit. Sprinkle that in there so that it comes out a bunch of flowers. Okay, now gently cover that up. Okay, open this one up.
My mom
Open
is
that
making
one
a
up.
garden, so I'm gonna try to.
There you go. Cover that one up good now. Okay, everybody else, y'all go ahead. Grab you a small pinch of seeds. Don't get too much. Open it up. That's good. That's a good job. Okay, sprinkle it in. That's probably way too much seed. Okay, right there in the
What
middle.
was that?
There, we're done. Pass it on so everyone else gets a
Okay.
turn. Leave it there. Ruth, did you plant seeds?
Yeah, I found it.
You flowers?
I need to up it. Now what do we do?
Okay, is everybody done?
Happy.
Okay, so now we're going to take a little bit of worm castings. Okay, y'all want to, this is actually wonderful. Look at that. It's awesome stuff.
So you said you can put that on
If you
top
don't
for
want
me.
to, I'll do it.
Yeah. Do it for me.
Okay.
Do it for us. Do it for
Okay,
me.
Do
so
you buy
now
that?
I'm going, you can buy it. Yes, you
Okay.
can buy it at Lowe's.
Right, put it up there.
Personally, we just do stuff to make it.
Okay.
Okay, so mix that in, and then you're going to top it with a little bit. Okay?
Good job, Mary.
So this is what good food grows in right here. Okay?
I want some in there. Why are you putting yourself in
Okay.
the wall? Bobby, this morning.
Do you want to do it?
I was
Do
watching
you
this
want to do
on.
it? Are you willing to touch worm casting?
I bet so. They do not care.
Good.
Ruth, put it on the table.
You might actually have some farmer in you. All right.
We do, but I don't like mine is this.
Okay, we're going to mix that in just a little bit. Okay, put some in this one.
It actually feels really cool.
Here,
And then we're
Ruth,
going
here
to put
comes
some.
yours.
Yeah.
Okay? Did you get enough in yours? I'm going to put just a little bit more. You did a great job.
Mommy,
You want some more? You want to get yourself?
I don't
Okay.
like Esther. Just stay at the table.
Here you go, buddy.
Look, Bobby. Oh my goodness. What?
Look at that. Perfect. All right, now mix it in just a little bit. Don't disturb your seeds. Just a little bit.
Wait,
And then let it back out.
Exactly.
Okay?
It's in mine. His plant is already growing.
It's already growing. You did such a good job. It's already growing.
So that's it? And then we water it?
And then you water it.
Okay.
Yep.
Where do we water it? We water it at your house.
You don't want the
Mama,
ants
how
in
do
there?
we
We're
not
asking
Ow.
it's okay for ants to be in there.
You really don't want ants in there.
Oh.
That ants actually eat. Does that have ants in
Yes,
it?
that's why she's kind of
Okay.
getting
One of
upset.
Yeah, there's so many ants.
So it probably won't be
job,
that
Mary.
big of a deal, but ants do actually eat earthworms.
We don't eat it. You're gonna grow plants. We're gonna water it.
So
and
these are actually flowers, or what's in here.
Okay.
If I was growing plants, afterwards I would put Gen Trash after the plant comes up. And you can actually get around it.
Okay.
Yep.
So these are flowers. We're gonna go and water them at home, okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
Now, there was an awful lot of flower seed in there, so I don't know how it's going to come out.
It's gonna be blooming.
Yeah, it's going to actually explode.
It's already growing.
Oh my gosh.
Blueberry. Blueberry.
Yep. So just a little bit of water every day. You don't want to saturate it.
We go.
Sign out there.
All right. Is that,
Hey Ruth,
is that
get your
good?
pots.
Everybody learn something today?
Yes.
Y'all learn something? Thank you.
Don't forget your flowers.
Ours is wrong at home.
This is wrong at home. I doubt it's that bad. It's hard to mess that up.
That's, yeah, we've got some work to do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much.